After my wife tried to force me to watch her sister's kids every single weekend so they could both go out partying, she gave me an ultimatum and ended up receiving divorce papers she never imagined she'd be holding. I'm Jason. I'm 32 years old, and up until that moment, I had been married for 3 years. Our relationship had never been perfect, but it worked. We spent 2 years dating before getting married in a small, simple, and financially sensible ceremony. I work in supply chain management for a mid-sized distribution company, making about $78,000 a year. She works as an administrator at a dental clinic and makes about $42,000. From day one, we decided to keep our finances separate, each with our own account, each paying our share of the mortgage and utilities based on what we earned. I had bought my house 2 years before meeting her, thanks to a good bonus. The mortgage was always manageable. Brianna moved in after the wedding, which made sense because she was living in a studio apartment that cost almost as much as my monthly payment. The only delicate shared expense was her car. Her 2009 Toyota died 6 months after the marriage, and since the repair cost more than the car's value, I ended up co-signing the financing for her new trade-in. The title is in both names, but I am the primary owner and the policy is under my insurance. That detail would become important later on. Our daily life had its rhythm. I went to the gym at 6, she got up an hour later, I made coffee, she fought with the toaster. We worked, came back, talked about our day, watched series, tried restaurants on weekends, and some days we went over to my best friend Deshawn's place, who was always watching some game. Everything was pretty normal. Then came the call from her sister, Janelle. She's 33, recently divorced, and has 2 kids. Ari, 6 years old, pure energy, and Nico, 8 years old, with the attitude of someone who thinks he's smarter than all the adults and proves it every minute. Together they were like a natural disaster that couldn't be evacuated. She lived several states away with her second husband, but the marriage ended when he got tired of being the one supporting everything, gave her an ultimatum, and she chose her kids. Next thing was packing up and moving back home. At first, she moved in with her parents, but that lasted exactly 1 week, so she ended up renting an apartment 20 minutes from ours. The first time they visited us was tolerable. An hour and a half, pizza, TV, adult chat, moderately manageable kids. Brianna was happy to have her sister close again. The second visit was another story. Ari knocked over a lamp I had to replace, and Nico decided my leather sofa was a personal trampoline. Janelle barely looked up from her phone to murmur a sweet, quiet reprimand that the kids ignored without remorse. The third time, Janelle asked us to watch the kids for a few hours while she went to an interview. Brianna accepted without consulting me. Since I couldn't avoid it, I called my best friend, Deshawn, to keep me company. If I was going to suffer, at least I wouldn't be alone. Deshawn arrived with a box of energy drinks and a look of anticipated defeat. "You're going to owe me a month of lunches for this," he warned me. I offered him 2 months. He accepted without thinking. Janelle dropped the kids off at noon. Her interview was at 1, but she said she'd be back at 4. I didn't try to decipher that logic. As soon as she left, Ari began a destructive inspection of the living room, identifying every fragile object with military precision. Nico, for his part, immediately demanded food, Wi-Fi access, his favorite video channel, and pizza because he was hungry, despite having had breakfast shortly before. Deshawn looked at me and asked, incredulous, if these were the same kids who had broken my TV during a previous visit. When I confirmed, he could only lament having agreed to help me. We tried to calm them down with a kids' movie, popcorn and the TV on. It lasted exactly 12 minutes. Ari decided it was more fun to jump on the furniture, and Nico discovered that throwing popcorn was more entertaining than eating it. One ended up in Deshawn's eye, and he started doubting all his life decisions. The time distortion around those kids was real. 30-something minutes had passed, but we already felt like we had aged several years. Ari discovered that if he screamed into the couch cushions, the sound was funny. He spent 20 minutes burying his face in them and screaming without pause. Meanwhile, Nico connected his tablet to the Bluetooth speaker and started playing unpleasant sounds at full volume, mainly flatulence effects that resonated through the whole house like it was a stadium. When we thought the situation couldn't get worse, we found Ari in the garage with my toolbox. He had managed to take the front wheel off my bicycle with a wrench he shouldn't have been able to lift. According to him, he was fixing it. According to reality, he was destroying it. Nico, meanwhile, dedicated the entire afternoon to bothering Deshawn, questioning his age, his beard, why he didn't have kids, and even insinuated he lived in his mother's basement. The kid had a natural talent for detecting any insecurity and pressing right there. Deshawn was 2 seconds away from searching the internet for something like, "Is it illegal to leave other people's kids at a fire station?" That afternoon, the little ones had gotten into the pantry and discovered my protein powder. Ari thought it was hot chocolate mix, and without thinking, prepared a sort of shake using tap water, without stirring, without measuring anything. He just dumped the powder in a glass, added water, and drank it. The result was immediate. He spit it out all over the kitchen. A layer of white dust remained on the floor as if a chemical disaster had occurred. "I don't like it," Ari declared, with all the seriousness of a food critic. "This isn't chocolate. It's protein powder," I explained. "Why did you take something without asking?" I got no answer, just a completely blank stare. At 3:30, Brianna texted me. "Janelle's interview ran long. She'll be at least 2 more hours, maybe 3. I just thought, you said it would be 4 hours, and Deshawn's response was a surrendered sigh. Plans change. I want a new friend. We ordered pizza out of desperation, believing the food would calm them down. Total mistake. Ari took 2 bites and said it was horrible. Nico, on the other hand, devoured 4 slices and then announced he was lactose intolerant and his stomach hurt. He wasn't. He was simply looking for drama. Around 5 p.m., Ari found some permanent markers in my office drawer. He painted his face, arms, and stomach until he looked like a tiny prisoner who had lost a bet. Deshaun was laughing so hard he could barely breathe. I took photos in case I needed evidence later. I sent a message to Brianna, "Your sister is going to love this." She just replied, "Or not." Very helpful. Then Nico discovered that my toolbox was within reach and decided to fix the kitchen cabinet door. I don't know how long it took him, but by the time I stopped him, he had removed 3 hinges. The door detached and fell directly to the floor. Nico looked at me as if it were my fault. "I was helping you," he assured. "You destroyed it," I corrected. "And it wasn't broken until you touched it." He said nothing. He simply walked away with all the tranquility in the world. By then, Deshaun was sitting on the floor, defeated. "This is building character for me," he murmured. "It's strengthening me as a person." "You don't sound very convinced. Why aren't I?" Finally, they took them away at 6:30. It was 6.5 hours of pure suffering. Janelle arrived radiant, as if she had returned from a spa day. Perfect hair, impeccable makeup, new clothes, and saying the interview had gone excellently. "Thank you, really, you are heroes." What she found was my devastated living room, my disassembled bicycle, and Deshaun staring into the void. After they left, he looked at me. "Never again." "Totally agree. I'm serious. You could be on fire. If these kids were the only ones with a bucket of water, I wouldn't accept." Noted. "I need food. Many burgers. And maybe therapy." Brianna thought it had been very kind to help. According to her, Janelle appreciated it very much. I clarified that it was a one-time thing. She promised they wouldn't ask again, unless it was an emergency. 2 weeks later, another emergency arose. Janelle called on a Thursday night to say she had a date, the first since her divorce, and that she really needed that moment. She asked if we could watch the kids on Saturday for a few hours. She deserves it. "She's been through so much," Brianna said while giving me that sad puppy look. I agreed against all common sense. I called Deshaun. "No way," he replied immediately. "Come on. I need backup." I said never again. I meant it. I already tattooed "never babysit again" on my chest. "You don't have tattoos. Well, I'll get it done right after this call. I'll buy you lunch for 3 months, 4 months, and pay for your therapy." Done. Saturday arrived like a sentence. Deshaun appeared with the face of a soldier on a suicide mission. He brought a Nintendo Switch to bribe the kids with video games. Smart, I thought. Janelle dropped them off at 2. She promised to return at 6, 7 at the latest. As soon as she left, Deshaun murmured, "She's lying. And you know it?" He was right. Nico demanded Deshaun's console immediately. "No, it's mine," he replied. Nico threw himself on the floor and started screaming. Not crying. Screaming. Just like that. For no reason. Ari saw it and decided it was a good idea to join in solidarity. So now we had a duet of shrieks. I'm sure my neighbors called the police. We calmed them down, offering snacks, fruit, cookies, juice boxes. We tried to be responsible. That lasted 10 minutes. Then Ari said he needed to go to the bathroom. I escorted him upstairs, and after entering, he locked himself in. Refusing to come out, he started singing nonsense sounds at the top of his lungs for 20 minutes. Meanwhile, Nico found a permanent marker. I don't know how, I don't know from where. Kids have radar for things they shouldn't touch. He decorated my dining room table with what I assume was a dinosaur, although it looked like a demon in an existential crisis. Deshaun tried to clean it with an abrasive compound. He only managed to make it worse. Now the whole surface had a gray stain that looked like evidence of a crime. "I'm moving to Canada," he said, looking at the disaster. Ari finally came out of the bathroom. He said he was bored and started opening every cabinet, every drawer, every closet in the house. He found my wedding album, took it outside and left it in the entryway, right before it started raining 10 minutes later. My photos were soaked. Deshaun looked at me very seriously. "That is a sign, brother. When a 6-year-old ruins your wedding photos, the universe is screaming at you." Around 4 in the afternoon, we tried to put on another movie. It lasted exactly 7 minutes. 7? And honestly, I don't even understand how they managed to surpass the chaos of the first time we watched them, but they did it with gusto. It all started when Ari began crying because he missed his mother, an intense, desperate cry, as if the world were sinking beneath his feet. Nico, without any tact, told him to stop making noise because he was bothering him. Ari, offended and with tears still running down his face, slapped him. And Nico, true to his explosive style, responded with another hit, but harder. From there to them, ending up on the floor, fighting as if it were a home recreation of a professional wrestling match. Not even half a second passed. Between Deshaun and me, we managed to separate them. He held one, I the other. It seemed like we were dealing with 2 wild animals instead of kids. We left Ari in the kitchen and Nico in the living room, naively believing that keeping them separate would solve something. Mistake. As soon as I turned around, Ari opened the refrigerator and started taking out everything he found, the mayonnaise open, the ketchup dripping on the counter, the eggs about to fall. Everything was scattered as if he were preparing some kind of incomprehensible culinary ritual. Meanwhile, in the living room, Nico turned the TV to maximum volume. But not to watch it. He started changing the channel so fast I felt my brain was going to melt. It was like a sensory attack, lights, voices, colors, noise, a whirlwind. "We are in a nightmare," said Deshaun, resting a hand on his forehead. "A real nightmare." I couldn't agree more. It was barely 5 when Nico announced he was hungry again. We reminded him he had just eaten moments ago. Anyway, we made him a sandwich. He took a minimal bite, made a face of disgust, and threw it against the wall as if he were participating in a target practice competition. The impact left a mix of peanut butter and jelly scattered like a sticky graffiti. Ari, always attentive to copy any destructive act, took his juice box and threw it. The contents were sliding down the wall in a pink, sticky, and honestly, depressing stream. I am never having kids, Deshawn repeated, standing up slowly. Monday I'm booking a vasectomy. 6 o'clock arrived without Janelle appearing. 7:02. Nothing. At 8, Brianna sent me a casual message, as if nothing out of the ordinary was happening. Janelle's date was going incredibly well, so it would possibly go a little longer, maybe until 9. I think I'm going to cry, murmured Deshawn with a trembling voice. And honestly, I was close too. Ari, bored of destroying the kitchen, found my laptop and started pressing keys without any recognizable pattern. In a matter of seconds, he had changed the entire system configuration to the Korean language. I still don't understand how he did it. I suspect Nico knows. Nico, on the other hand, found my Bluetooth speaker again and connected it to something playing an indescribable sound, a mix between extreme metal, screams, and maybe the noise of a blown engine. I can't even assure you it was music. At 9 o'clock sharp, my house looked like a battlefield. Food stuck to the walls, toys scattered everywhere, furniture moved out of place, and stains that frankly I prefer not to analyze. Deshawn was sitting on the floor, staring into the void as if he had seen the abyss. "We can leave," he said suddenly, very serious. "Just walk out the door. Let them take care of themselves." "That's illegal," I replied. "Are you sure? Or is it one of those things that are morally questionable but technically ambiguous, because most fun things are illegal?" Janelle appeared almost at 10. Exactly at 9:47, with a glow on her face as if she had lived the most wonderful experience of her life. She said the date had been incredible, that maybe this man was the one? After 3 weeks of knowing him. She asked how the kids had been. Brianna, from the phone, lied without blinking. Perfect. As soon as Janelle and the kids crossed the door, Deshawn stared at me, defeated. "I'm done. We aren't friends anymore, not even acquaintances. I'm going to block you. I'll move to another state. I'll change my name, maybe my face. I do not intend to go through this again." "You don't mean it," I replied. I have never been more serious in my life. That same night, I told Brianna we would not watch the kids again. Not now. Not tomorrow. Not in 100 years. Not even if there was a national emergency. Not if her sister's apartment caught fire and she needed to leave the kids here while fighting the fire. No. Period. She stayed silent and said I was exaggerating. That they were just kids. That they were suffering from the divorce. That they needed support. I already supported them, I replied. Twice, and I ended up cleaning my house for hours. Deshawn on the verge of an existential crisis, and my wedding photos ruined. I'm out. Afterwards, little by little, our life started to change, and not for the better. Janelle started coming to the house, but alone. She and Brianna sat talking for hours about empowerment, independence, living their truth, and all those concepts that sounded like they came from a poorly translated motivational pamphlet. Then the girls' nights out started, once a week, then 2, and she came back later each time. The first time was at midnight. The second, at 2 in the morning, tripping over furniture and giggling alone. From then on, it became a routine. They went to clubs, to meetings they called empowerment circles, which honestly seemed more like a covert cult than anything else. Brianna started dressing differently, more makeup, tighter clothes, impossible heels. She started talking about herself as if she were going through a spiritual enlightenment. "I am prioritizing myself," she said. "I am discovering who I really am." And anything I asked her was justified with the social pressure women suffer. The problem is, she also started spending money we didn't have. Debts piled up on the kitchen counter, already exceeding $6,000, and kept rising. She stopped cooking. She stopped washing her clothes. She left mountains of unwashed garments until she had nothing left to wear. And no, I wasn't going to do her laundry. We were adults, not college roommates. Then came the request I feared. Janelle wanted us to watch the kids again. She had met another man, not the same, the one from before, and they wanted a weekend together. She would even pay us. I said no without thinking. Brianna's face changed in seconds. "It's just a weekend," she said, annoyed. "It's 2 full days with kids who destroy everything. I don't intend to do it." "She's my sister," she responded. "Then you watch them, not me. That's not fair. What's unfair is you deciding for both of us and expecting me to give away my free time without consulting me." She tried to manipulate me emotionally again, that the kids were suffering, that they acted like that due to trauma, that Janelle needed to rebuild her life, that I should support the family. "I already did," I replied. "Twice. And I ended up cleaning my house for hours." She said I was being selfish. I told her I was being clear. No means no. She locked herself in the room and didn't speak to me for 2 days. When she finally did, it was to reproach me that a true partner would have assumed responsibilities, that she expected more from me, that I had disappointed her deeply. I replied that a true partner respects boundaries. Grave mistake. That phrase became ammunition. The following Tuesday, I came home from work and found Brianna, Janelle, and my mother-in-law, Estelle, sitting in my living room as if they had organized a TV show-style intervention. They were lined up, very serious, waiting for me. "We need to talk," said Estelle, clasping her hands as if she were a professional mediator. Janelle started crying, recounting how hard her life was, how much she had sacrificed, how alone she was, how unfair it was that I couldn't watch the kids for a few hours. Estelle intervened with a speech about the importance of family and the moral obligation to support each other. Brianna continued with her arms crossed, looking at me as if I were the root of all her problems. "You have no idea what it is to be a single mother," said Janelle. "You're right," I replied. Why aren't they my kids? Estelle sighed as if she had witnessed a crime. When I raised my daughters, we all helped each other. It was the right thing. Family comes first. Then you watch them, I told her. They are your family too. I have my book club and my aqua aerobics classes, she replied indignantly. Ah, how convenient. We are all busy then. Janelle broke down crying, accusing me of being cruel and cold, saying she never imagined I would be capable of something like this, and in that moment, I understood something with absolute clarity. They weren't looking for help. They weren't looking for understanding. What they wanted was unlimited availability, and someone to do the work they didn't want to assume. I tried to stay on the sidelines while Brianna held her sister's hand and shot me a look loaded with contempt, as if I were committing some kind of unforgivable treason. They spent about 30 more minutes insisting on the same topic, repeating arguments from different angles, hoping I would yield from exhaustion. I didn't intervene, I simply let them talk until they had nothing left to say. When they finally fell silent, I stood up and replied calmly, "If you are finished, I have things to do." Both left without saying goodbye. Before leaving, Estelle gave me a look that clearly said that, for her, I had betrayed the whole family. That night, Brianna went to sleep directly in the guest room, without a single word. From that point, the situation began to deteriorate with surprising speed. She started going out increasingly often. 3, even 4 nights a week. She arrived later and later, giving increasingly vague explanations, and then none. Eventually, I stopped asking. She stopped offering any information. The nights became silent, uncomfortable, as if we shared the house out of obligation and not decision. We were two strangers, coexisting without any interest in the other. Janelle, her sister, kept calling constantly to insist on the topic that I should help her on weekends. Brianna resumed the conversation every time she could, as if she had never held it before. I maintained my stance, and the firmer my answer was, the more distant my wife became. And the further she moved away, the more she seemed to absorb her sister's ideas. She started talking about personal growth, about not allowing marriage to limit her identity, about feeling trapped by expectations she hadn't chosen. All expressions that sounded exactly like the ones Janelle repeated in every call. Until the breaking point arrived. It was any given Tuesday, one where we both coincided at home, something rare back then. I was watching TV. She had been sending messages to Janelle nonstop for nearly 40 minutes. From my angle, I could see her screen full of eye-roll emojis, as if she were mocking something related to me. I asked her what she wanted for dinner. A simple question. "I don't know," she replied without taking her eyes off the phone. "Whatever you want? Chinese?" I asked. "Well, yes," she answered without interest. The food arrived about 30 minutes later. We sat at opposite ends of the sofa, eating in a dense and tense silence. She stayed glued to her mobile as if I weren't even there. And suddenly, without warning, she brought up the topic of helping her sister that weekend. I repeated that I had already said no. Then she exploded. "Are you being ridiculous?" "I am being clear," I replied. "No, you are being selfish. A child, you should grow up and support your family." Something in her tone, in that mix of condescension and contempt, made something inside me harden. "Excuse me?" I said. "You heard me. Stop behaving like a child. Stop being useless. Behave like a man for the first time in your life." There it was, the total lack of respect that had been felt in the air for weeks, but which she hadn't said openly until that instant. I put my food aside, looked at her, and took a deep breath. "Repeat it," I said. "Which part? The part where you disrespected me in my own house?" "Ah, your house?" she responded with a sarcastic laugh. "There it is, your house, your rules, your way." As if I couldn't have an opinion. "You have the right to an opinion?" I told her, but not to insult me. She let out a cackle. "Insult you? You've been disrespecting my family for weeks. But of course, poor thing, your feelings were hurt." I got up, took my keys. "I'm going to Deshawn's. We'll talk when you calm down." "Run. That's what you do," she replied without looking at me. I went straight to Deshawn's apartment. As soon as he opened the door, he knew something serious had happened. I told him everything, from the first incidents to what had happened that night. He listened in silence, nodded slowly, and then said, "Do you know what you have to do?" "Yes." "Sure?" "Yes." "Then say it." "I'm tired. I'm done." He nodded again. We stayed in silence for a moment. That night I didn't go back home. I slept on his couch, and the next day I called a lawyer to start the divorce process. During the phone consultation, I explained the situation. He told me that, considering we didn't have children, finances were separate, and the house was in my name, it would be a relatively quick procedure. I asked him to prepare the documents. Thursday afternoon I went back to the house while Brianna was at work. I placed the divorce papers spread out on the kitchen table, arranged so they were impossible to ignore. I left a note on top. "We are done. The papers are on the table. You have until Sunday to take your things. Leave the car keys." I photographed everything to have a record. Then I gathered my essential belongings, loaded them into my car, and returned to Deshawn's apartment to wait. At 5:40 p.m., the calls started. 19 attempts in 12 minutes. I didn't answer. Then came the messages. Endless. From "Are you serious?" to "You are destroying 3 years over a nonsense." The phone vibrated so much it ended up sliding off the table. "She's losing control," commented Deshawn, seeing the mobile shaking on the floor. "I'm glad," I replied. The first voice notes arrived around 7. The first showed her crying, begging me to call her. The second, furious, calling me a coward. The third, Janelle, could clearly be heard in the background giving her instructions. Tell him he's making a mistake. Tell him you agree to go to therapy. Tell him you can still fix it. I didn't answer anything. At 8:30, she appeared at Deshawn's apartment. She banged on the door, crying, screaming my name. He opened only enough to speak. He doesn't want to talk to you, he said firmly. This is between my husband and me, she replied. Not anymore. He's done, he replied. She tried to force her way in, but Deshawn is big and strong. He didn't even move. She cried right there in the hallway, saying she didn't mean it, that she was stressed, that they could fix everything on Sunday. He answered her through the closed door. Your things must be out or donated by Sunday, you decide. In the end, she left. That night, she called 17 more times. I turned off notifications. On Friday, I returned to the house while she was at work. I changed all the locks. Then I started packing her belongings. Everything I found. Clothes, shoes, makeup, personal care items, even that decorative sign she insisted on hanging in the kitchen and that I had hidden months before, the one that said, live, laugh, love. I put it in one of the boxes. In total, there were 23, each duly labeled. I also found things that bothered me even more. 3 Amazon packages charged to my card, several subscription boxes I was paying for without knowing, and I discovered she had upgraded her Netflix profile to the premium version using my account. Small details, yes, but added up, they demonstrated how unbalanced the relationship had been for a long time. On Saturday, Janelle appeared, without the kids. She banged on the door insistently for several minutes while screaming my name. I didn't open. She threatened to call the police, raising her voice as if the simple act of shouting could change reality. I replied from the entrance that, if anyone was committing an offense, it wasn't me, but them, because they were on my property without my consent. I even told them I had already made the corresponding call, although in reality, I just wanted them to stop behaving as if everything belonged to them. Before that warning, they finally left, but they did so making it clear they would return. On Sunday afternoon they came back, and this time they arrived together. Brianna, Janelle, and Estelle. The 3 advanced with the same expression of determination, as if they had rehearsed a strategy. From the moment I saw them approaching, I understood they weren't coming to dialogue, but to impose their narrative. I opened the door without even inviting them in and pointed to the boxes I had left stacked in the garage so there would be no confusion. There you have all your stuff, I said with a firm voice. Take it and leave. Janelle was the first to attack me, as always. You are a pathetic guy. My sister deserves much more than this. Then she won't have trouble finding something better, I replied, without moving a muscle. Estelle tried to soften the situation, adopting a reasonable person posture. You should discuss this calmly. Marriages face challenges. They need compromise. I didn't quit, I answered her. I was disrespected, and I took a decision based on that. There are the boxes. That is the only thing left to do. While they made 3 trips to load her things, Brianna didn't stop crying. She looked at me waiting for some gesture that confirmed there was still something to save. But there wasn't. She had crossed too many lines and I had already closed that chapter. When they finished, I lowered the garage door without drama, just with the determination of someone who has nothing left to offer. From outside I heard her broken voice. Wait? Can we talk, please? There is nothing to discuss, I replied without opening. This is over. I can change, she insisted, with a cry that sought manipulation more than redemption. You had 3 years to do it. You made other decisions. And this is the result. They left, and the next day, the storm began. On Monday, Janelle started a digital campaign to ruin me. She posted long texts on social media about emotionally abusive husbands and narcissistic behaviors. She indirectly identified Brianna, leaving enough details for anyone with 2 neurons to connect the dots. In less than an hour, I already had notifications everywhere, messages of concern, insults, unsolicited opinions. Most spoke without having any idea of anything. I didn't answer any. I limited myself to saving screenshots and sending each one to my lawyer. On Tuesday, Janelle tried to escalate even more and called my work. My boss, a fairly direct man, stopped her cold and warned her that if she insisted, he would file a harassment complaint. Annoyed, she sent an email full of absurd accusations. My boss forwarded it to me with a clear note, keep all this. So I did. From Wednesday to Friday, the situation became grotesque. Someone started leaving fake 1-star reviews on my company, mentioning me by full name. My boss got Google to remove them, but the emotional damage was already done. As if that were not enough, someone threw eggs at my house. The security cameras recorded the person, so I stored the images with the rest of the evidence. Friday night, what had until then been digital harassment crossed a new line. They published my full address and a photo of my home in a Facebook group. My lawyer called me and told me it was time to request a restraining order. I decided to wait, more for strategy than patience. On Saturday, Janelle returned and started screaming from my yard. She said I had ruined her sister's life, that I was a monster, that I deserved to suffer. I recorded everything from the window. The neighbors came out, observing the scene as if it were an improvised show. When someone mentioned calling the police, Janelle decided to retreat. 3 hours later, Estelle arrived, but with another approach. She knocked on the door calmly, like someone trying to show she is the adult voice of the group. This has gone to another level, she commented. Totally agree, I replied. Tell your daughter to stop harassing me, I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about you. Are you really going to destroy a marriage over an argument? She disrespected me for years. I made a decision, and decisions have consequences. Family forgives. I am no longer part of your family. She left without adding more. Sunday was so silent it was disturbing. I took the opportunity to organize more evidence, screenshots, videos, audios, emails, calls, everything. That night, Deshaun came to see me. Do you think this is over? He asked. Not remotely, I replied. And I wasn't wrong. The following Wednesday, Brianna sent me a message assuring me she accepted the divorce, but that she would keep the car. According to her, she needed it for work. I replied with facts. The title is in both names, but I am the primary owner. The insurance is under my policy. If you don't return it, I report it as stolen. You wouldn't dare. Try it. On Thursday, upon not receiving the car, I called the non-emergency number. I explained the case, divorce in process, vehicle registered primarily in my name, refusal to return it. They confirmed I could report it as stolen. Did I do it? 2 hours later, the police located the car at Janelle's apartment and recovered it. Brianna called me crying, screaming that I had humiliated her, that I had destroyed her life. You should have returned the car, was all I said. Later she came to my house, begging from the other side of the door that I would allow her to use the vehicle to get to work. I replied that transportation apps existed. I didn't open. On Friday, Janelle called again from an unknown number. You are a loser. My sister is better off now that she isn't with you. Perfect, I replied. Then she should be celebrating the divorce. I hung up. The process advanced without setbacks. 30 days waiting period. My lawyer commented it was one of the simplest cases he had seen. No property to divide, no children, evident proofs of my attempts at dialogue. It only remained to wait. In the third week, rumors started arriving. They told me Brianna was going through a bad time. Janelle's boyfriend had left her because she appeared at every date with the kids. He made it clear he didn't want to become anyone's father figure. Without a partner, with 2 kids to attend to every weekend, and with an increasingly reduced social circle, Janelle started pressuring her sister, who ended up as the unofficial babysitter, Brianna. Every weekend, Janelle left Ari and Nico in her small apartment, where they made disasters without stopping for a second. Brianna, who was already emotionally exhausted, now had to endure that chaos too. A coworker of hers texted me. She told me Brianna had missed work 3 times in 2 weeks, arrived late on several occasions, confused schedules and made serious mistakes with the patient agenda. The dentist had already warned her, another incident, and she would be suspended. I thought you should know, she told me. I know you aren't together anymore, but I imagined maybe you'd still worry about her well-being. The reality is I did care, but not enough to act. In the 4th week, I learned she had been fired. 3 straight days arriving late to open the office were the trigger. She could no longer handle the work or personal pressure. Her posts on social networks became melancholic, phrases about betrayal, photos with self-care messages, images with Janelle accompanied by text about how family is always there and how men come and go. The desperate tone was unmistakable. Janelle also published endless rants about toxic masculinity and emotional abuse, trying to justify what caused everything. And while they sank into their narratives, I simply kept moving forward, organizing documents, complying with the legal process, and maintaining the necessary distance. In the end, each person was facing exactly the consequences they had chosen. The comments on networks were completely divided. Some defended Brianna with enthusiasm, while others pointed out directly the evident manipulation behind the whole situation. In the middle of that chaos, I found out through Deshaun, who in turn heard it from a mutual acquaintance, that the sisters had had a monumental fight days ago. Apparently, Janelle needed someone to watch her kids because she had a date and demanded Brianna take charge all night. Brianna refused immediately. She already had plans. That simple refusal lit the fuse. Janelle exploded, screaming at her that she had given up everything to support her during the divorce and that now she couldn't even do her such a basic favor. She called her selfish, ungrateful, and, according to Deshaun, even compared her to her ex-husband, which was a direct hit where it hurt most. The two stopped speaking for 4 full days. After that uncomfortable silence, Janelle apologized with a speech full of stress and regret. Brianna accepted, and everything returned to the same toxic cycle as always. The desperate call came in the 4th week. My phone rang from a blocked number. I ignored the first time, but they insisted 4 attempts in 10 minutes. On the 5th, I answered. Yes, it's me. The voice on the other side sounded tiny, broken, unrecognizable. It seemed she had been crying for hours. I need to talk to you, she said. We have nothing to talk about, I replied. Please, I made a mistake. I was wrong. I want to come back. I'll do whatever. There it was. Her life had fallen apart. Suddenly, I appeared as a good option again. Now, the same man she called useless was exactly the support she needed. She continued begging. I can change. I'll cut ties with my sister. I'll set boundaries. I'll do what you ask. Just, please, take me back. I can't take it anymore. The divorce was finalized in 6 days. No, I told her. And yes, I still have feelings for you, but that doesn't mean what you think. Is it worth nothing? She asked between sobs. You should have thought about it before disrespecting me in my own house. Before choosing your sister over your marriage. I didn't mean it. I was stressed. She wouldn't stop getting into my head. Goodbye, I replied. She tried to stop me. Wait. I hung up. I blocked the number. Then I blocked everything else. Social media, email, calls, the end, finished. On day 30, I received the official notification at 2:15 p.m. My lawyer sent me a message. Everything is finalized. Congratulations. The documents will arrive in 5 to 7 business days. I texted Deshawn. It's official. Dinner tonight. His response arrived in seconds. Definitely. That night we went to our usual restaurant. We ordered several dishes, toasted to freedom, and laughed at everything we had survived. After that, life went on. I focused on work, returned to the gym with discipline, and spent more time with Deshawn. I slept better, ate better. The house, now without Brianna's things, felt more spacious, quieter, much calmer. I organized the garage. I finished a project I had postponed for months, installed new shelves, and left everything spotless. The sensation of control and order was liberating. I also went back to dating. Nothing serious, just meeting people, adult chats without drama, without pressures, without anyone invading my boundaries. 6 weeks after the divorce, a random Saturday, Deshawn came to the house to watch the game. We ordered wings, settled on the sofa, and the first quarter started. Barely 20 minutes passed when someone started banging on the door with force. "Are you expecting someone?" asked Deshawn. "No," I replied. The banging continued, then the doorbell, and then both at the same time, as if they wanted to break down the door. Deshawn checked through the peephole. "It's your ex, and she looks completely out of it. Don't open, brother. She doesn't plan to leave." The banging increased. She was screaming, "I know you're there. Your car is in the driveway. Open the door." Deshawn looked at me again. "Do you want me to handle it?" "We both handle it," I replied. When we opened, I found her a mess. Messy hair, smeared makeup, old and stained sweatshirt, puffy eyes. She had cried a lot. "We need to talk," she said with a broken voice. "No," I answered. "Please, Jason, just 5 minutes, 2 minutes," and she started to collapse in tears. She claimed she had made a huge mistake, that Janelle had poisoned her mind, that she understood too late that I had been the best thing in her life. I let her talk until she exhausted herself. "Time is up," I told her. "I beg you, I'll do anything. Just give me another chance. We were happy, we could be again." Deshawn took a step forward. "Look, no offense," he told her, "but you had 3 years with a good man who treated you as you deserved. You yourself threw everything overboard because your sister convinced you it wasn't enough, and now you come begging because your life fell to pieces. Too late. This is between my husband and me," she said. "Ex-husband," corrected Deshawn, emphasizing the word. "And honestly, you have nerve appearing here after everything." She murmured something about her sister only trying to protect her. Deshawn let out a dry laugh. "Protect you?" he repeated. "Janelle was dragging you to her level. She is already twice divorced, trapped in a chaos of solo motherhood, dating men who run as soon as they notice the emotional baggage she carries. Instead of taking charge of her disaster, she persuaded you to destroy your life too. And you believed her." He took a bottle of water, drank calmly, while Brianna continued crying on my porch. "This is incredible," she said. 3 years of marriage, and this is what I receive." She looked directly at me. "Have you really moved on?" "Yes," I replied. "I don't believe you." I stayed silent. I just observed her. She waited a whole minute, crying, waiting for me to yield. I didn't. Finally, she returned to her car, an old sedan I didn't recognize, probably a rental, and stayed there motionless, as if she were waiting for me to reconsider something. She rested her forehead on the steering wheel, took a deep breath several times, and, after a few seconds that seemed eternal, started the engine and drove away slowly down the street. There was no drama, nor a last attempt, nor a final speech. Just the feeling of someone who no longer had the strength to keep insisting. When the light of her headlights disappeared, Deshawn closed the door with an exaggerated sigh. There was a brief silence, almost uncomfortable, until he released an absurd comment that broke all tension in the atmosphere. "Well," he said while heading to the kitchen. "Do you want something?" I got thirsty and I don't plan to explain why. I let out an involuntary laugh. After that whole scene, the only thing left was to return to normality. We settled back on the sofa, resumed the game, and talked about anything other than what had just happened. An inside joke from work, his latest disaster on a date, the gym, plans for next week. Everything that had occurred minutes before felt like an episode foreign to my life. When he finally left, the house remained in a silence very different from the one I remembered. It wasn't the emptiness left by a breakup, it was a clean, quiet stillness, a space that for the first time in a long time belonged completely to me. I walked through the rooms without haste, adjusting small details here and there, enjoying the calm that before seemed impossible to me. I turned on some soft music, poured myself a glass of water, and sat on the sofa, looking at my home with a new clarity. There were no raised voices, nor unfair demands, nor criticisms disguised as concern. Just me, my life rebuilding itself, and a future that no longer felt tied to anyone else. 3 shared years ended in half a year of storm. But what remained now was simple. Peace. And for the first time in a long time, I understood that sometimes a single lack of respect doesn't destroy a marriage, it simply reveals that it was already broken from before. And that, accepting the truth without carrying it longer than necessary, was the most liberating decision I could have taken.